All right, a good day to all. Sam here with you on a Friday. We're kind of midday, and as it is Friday, we're going to take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin Friday. So I've got it here now. This is the 3 hour on Bitfinex. Right now, I know you can't see any of that. We're gonna get into that. I just wanted to do kind of a recap on where we are in the larger picture before we dig into the hard right edge and try and figure out what's going on there. Now, note here, I have it in log scale. So if I take it out of log scale, you see this difference here. It just makes for the wave separation just easier to spot with the compression up here on the top. So I will often do that, particularly when I'm looking at this length of time, just to get a better feel for what's going on. Now, you could really make the case here, if you look at this, that we have this from this low down here, which I think is 1800. We've got this completed 5-wave structure. I don't think there's much debate about what we have there and that we completed something. Now, question becomes, what did we complete? So you look at this and you think, well, so if you look at it right now, it looks like you're smack dab in the middle of it. But remember, this is log scale, so everything is distorted with the compression at the higher number. So if we pull from swing low to swing high and look at where that leaves us, well, we've gone, and I've shown this before, we've gone almost to the 786. So, it makes you think in terms of probabilities as to what degree, what wave this is likely to be relative to this entire move here, right? With the 786, well, we can be fairly comfortable that it's not likely to be a fourth wave, right? So, but, now there's some question about whether or not we have a very large triangle in here. We know from our Elliott wave rule set that we can't have a triangle in the second. So, it kind of leaves you at a bit of a, just scratching your head thinking, well, what could it be? Well, as I look at this, I remain bullish, and I don't think we have a triangle here. So, but again, I'm well documented with my bullish bias here. So I recognize that as I go into any video evaluation or myself, just thinking about where is the next move likely to come. So given that, here, let's just think about it. Let's just review also as well. So if this is all just a correction, so clearly it would be an internal correction, right? Swing low, swing high, we're still very much internal. Well, let's think about what else is going on here. Well, we know we can do a couple of things. So if you just look at this, so your eye is immediately, it's almost impossible to miss the idea that we have some sort of an A, 3-wave into a B, and then we finish down here for a C. That one is hard to argue with. So what do you do? Let's see, get that. What do I want? Oh, sorry, here. Let's get that off. Okay, so A, B, C. Wouldn't that have been easy if we just had an A, B, C, and then we went 1, 2. Well, that's not what we get. So we have more complexity here. So there are a couple of possibilities. Jesus, hang on a second. I'm going to get out of this mode. Here, let's get over here. That's what I want. All right, yeah, there we go. Okay, so ABC. So something else is going on. Well, before we dive into the Elliott piece of it, we can just think in terms of 3s and 5s. And of course, we always want to think about what did the algos do last. Well, if there's a couple of polls here that are worth noting. So if I go from swing high to swing low, right, and get it right on there. Well, here's the 38. All right, that target is down here at 2,700. Right, so any algos, if you allow for this being a front run, which seems unlikely, what's well documented is this move here. So from the B high in Elliott speak, from this, or just pivot high. Well, here's the double tap on the 50 with that algo target down here. So those algorithms are still sitting there. They do not care about our Elliott count. They have a target down here where they will take profit. We'll call it it's 3350. That algorithm is just, again, they don't care. It's just a piece of software, right? So they sell it here, and they'll buy it back here. And none of this has any meaning, any bearing, couldn't care less. Well, we got a couple of others here now. So if we think about this move down here, that being the, I won't say worst case scenario, but that being a very viable technical destination, I'll leave it at that, right? That's certainly there. Well, we also have to pay attention to what's happened here from this swing to this swing. So as I like to put it in this nomenclature, internal retracement. Now, from this low here, we have not violated. So everything happening here is still internal if we go swing low to swing high. All of this still internal. Well, let's check here now. We got to look at what's happened here from this pivot here, the higher of the two, down to this most recent low here. We have not violated that low. Well, God, that's sticky mouse today. All right, so we can see here now. I've got to zoom in on this so you can see this. We go ever so slightly through the 65 here, ever so slightly, just a couple of ticks through it. So a bit of a judgment call here as to whether or not algo slipped there. That would put the bias to the long side with regards to algo participation. But you can see here, the algos that would have bought the next 50 have already been stopped out. All right, so just to make that point. So if I go from swing low to swing high, the algos that would have bought at that 50 have already taken their loss. So here's the reaction at the 50. So assumption being, Jesus, what is my mouth? Oh, I know what it is. Here it is. Okay, there we go. All right, so swing low to swing high. So here's the first to the tick pivot reaction. So which builds confidence in, right? And it's not rocket science here. Swing low, swing high. What do we see at the 50? Right? So that it builds confidence in the idea that you have algo participation here. Because of that, as I'll often tell you, it's when the algos flip here, it's not that they buy it there. They just reverse and wait for the next 50. Well, here's the reaction at the 50. You can see that. Now, we eventually roll over and we break the 65 and, in fact, have broken the 786. So, meaning that the algos that bought there have now been stopped out. And what are they doing now? Now they're just sitting waiting for the next 50. Well, now, of course, there's algos happening on different degrees. But if we think about where we are in our absolute low here, so if I take my pivot high here, my break, right? So remember, algo's just flipped, doesn't care about the Elliott count, right? So this becomes their next 50 here. So you can see here from swing, see how we get the edge here, right? So if I come over to my 50, there's my sell zone, there's my hot box, right? We can put it that way, assuming there'll be a slight front run. So that puts us here at 84.73. So again, no Elliott wave with regards to what I'm trying to map out here for you. Simply put, we're trying to figure out what the algos did last. So the larger degree, right? So there's algos right down to the tick chart. But here, as we look at it on a 3-hour, and I can just work from major pivot high to major pivot low. Assuming this low is going to hold, if it does hold, as long as it holds, how about I say it that way? As long as this holds, this becomes a very significant point here. If we get up here, there's going to be selling there. All right, gonna just absolutely guarantee it. An algorithm will kick in there and we'll start to sell. Now, just because they're selling there does not mean we can't get through it. Right? It's always a battle between fibs because there'll be a fib that will be pulling from the other direction. It's always a fib fight back and forth to see who's going to win, bulls or bears. So that's certainly, should we get up there. If this ultimately resolves, if we've got this in the bullish count going up for some sort of a 3, 4, 5, we'd have to pull this over here like that. That's a very reasonable target for if indeed we have a 1, 2 going in here. We're gonna dig into that. But if this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? We got a pretty reasonable chance to hear that this is what we're looking at for the bull count, right? So the caveat being this is for bulls. So on the assumption that I've got a good pivot down here, and now I'm working through. You know, I've had a little bit of an ugly 1 wave here, but I've now had my 3-wave correction. And if that pivot is my 2, big if, now we're gonna dig in there, so just bear with me. But if that's the count, then this would be a very viable destination for that 1 wave and a logical place to look for, you know, then this kind of reaction to come down in 3 before you go up for the big third. So 1, 2, 3. There's your bullish roadmap. If and big if we can get through this wall of resistance that we bumped into 3 or 4 times up here at what has it been? 70. We'll call it 7,600. Right, so a lot has to happen there, but that would be the bull count. Now, does that make sense? Is that valid here? Now you can see there's a trade that's on already. That's both the trade that I'm in as well as members in the room that share my bullish bias here. One of the things interesting about our group is that we you know, it's not the kind of Discord where people come in and just follow what I'm doing. That's never been my objective here. But I welcome dialogue here and back and forth and bull and bear and differing opinions of what's happening here. We have differing opinions among many of our senseis as to what's next for Bitcoin. So the idea is the methodology. That's what we all agree on. It's open to interpretation. That's the thing about Elliott Wave. In even what I'm explaining to you here in the algo pulls, there are algos on multiple time frames. So it becomes a question of what are you going to trade off of? And of course, we use the Elliott Wave to simply help us refine and reduce the risk and establish targets based on probabilities, right? So so just to reiterate this, what moves the market are the larger degree algo pulls. I enter the market and approach this methodology recognizing that the dominant force in the market are those algo pulls, right? Not the Elliott Wave. The Elliott Wave happens to fit in. It's a complementary methodology. I better put it that way, because of the consistency here of internal and external retracements, which is all we're doing with Elliott Wave, is trying to define the internal and the external and put it into some sort of a structure, give it some rules and some tendencies, study the probabilities over the last, call it 100 years, of where we see tendencies for these swing relationships to end and turn and pivot. The dominant force is always what the algos did last, right? And then can we work the Elliott Wave in around that? So that's an important distinction that I need to make, as people misinterpret what I'm trying to say, right? So the Elliott is the fine tuning, but it's the smaller degree, right? It's what's happening between the larger algo pulls, right? So again, if I pull out again, what's driving that is the algorithms that sold it here, right? And they are going to stay short and defend that short until they get their target, right? Or the bigger target down here. They do not care about the Elliott Wave count. There is no algorithm going, oh, that looks like that's a complex ABC into a DE. No, they all major pivots, right? And this is, I will remind you, God knows how many algorithms are running in the market. I have no idea. I just know that this is one that leaves giant footprints that we can track. So we can try and get behind them. So what did they do? So that's why, if you think about it here, this market starts going up. If you don't know that that's there, then you're just trading blindly, because you're going, oh, go. Oh man, why did it stop there? Looked like that. So in Elliott, let's think of it this way. So in Elliott terms, this would have been easy to think, oh, hey, I got a 1, I got a 2, that looks like a 3. There's my 4. Oh, what happened to my 5? Right? For the novice, or well, that's the wrong word to use. For someone who hasn't had this taught to them or explained to them, you're going, whoa, why did it stop there? You're kind of lost. Right? So I want to reemphasize that what drives the market, it's what's happening between these, right here, between the 50 and the 618 on either side, and what happens at the targets. That's what's driving price action. Well, technically, let me say it that way, right? So, what's driving price action? Maybe that's a subject for another video. But as it moves, what we try to determine is if it's moving, one up or down, how does it move? And is it moving in a way that we can glean some sense of predictability based on prior movement? That's all we're trying to do. So if you think about this now, the fact that we've had this little break here, so we have, this is the dominant pull. This is what the dominant force in the market is. The sell from that 50 with the effort to get to, well, in this case, from this 50, it's the effort to get to this algo target here, which is at 3,300. Right now, so we can't find an algo that works. There is no algorithm here that works in the context of the Elliott count that fits here. Right, so we've already broken. So it's bear's ball, because if I go from a completed 5-wave structure, we've broken all of the algorithmic support that would be there to be for the bulls. Those have been broken. So bears are in control from this pivot. Right, now let's think about where they start to lose control. All right, so with that established here, now I'm going to pull this off here so we can clear up the chart. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way down here and let's see. Okay, I'm going to go from the 3-hour, Because we're now looking at, let's go, well, let me get down to the 1 hour here and we'll ease into this. Okay, so on the 1 hour, we're working, the bullish bias is centered around the fact that from this low here, I have a clear 5-wave structure. Now, it's, as is often the case with Elliott wave, it can be interpreted in 2 different ways. I look at this and I see 5 waves going up, which tells me from that low, I've got a potential, I've got a candidate here for a 1 wave, given that very clear impulsive structure. As I see it, right? It's not perfect, but you have very strong subdivision here to support the idea. Now here's the example here, as I've often mentioned in video, where markets tend to get personalities. Bitcoin has been a wave 2. It's been a bit of a bitch in the wave 2. It's either too deep or too shallow. Seems to be the problem with Bitcoin. The 4 to 5, waves 3, all very traditional, very typical extensions in terms of internal to external, in terms of fib targets. But the 2s, very deep or very shallow. Seems to be the characteristic of Bitcoin as we go through this very long correction. So for the bullish count, we're working from this low as a 1 wave. Now we've had a very deep 2. I've been through this before many times in multiple videos because not a lot has changed over the last couple of weeks. We've broken the 786. We're in between it. So even if I put the 887 on that, right, we're in between the 2. In between, right? So is it a 2? If it's a 2, here we are yet again, just as question mark on this 2, question mark on this 2, a very deep 2, yet again, potentially, right? No, we could be wrong about this being a 2, but by we I mean me, right? And the other bulls that are looking at this as a deep 2, but there it is. There's that same tendency, very, very deep 2, right? Doesn't kill it as a 2. It lowers your probabilities, right? So so consider it a deep hole that we got to climb out of here, and just to get started. Now there is some evidence here that we may have made a start on this. At the very least, there's a possibility because we have a potential motive wave coming off of that low. Now I got to go down to the 15-minute to build that case. So I'm going to go here now down to the 15. So now I'm going to take it out of log scale because it doesn't really affect us here now as we come down to this degree and this time frame. Now, this is very, very tricky here. So yet again, is this a 2? That would be a very typical 2 if we had. Now you can see the trade here. So this trade was actually entered off of the first tap of the 50, right? So that's where I entered it, where I have members that share my bullish bias. And believe me, I've got plenty that don't share that bullish bias. But we entered here off of this pull. So here it was right here. Right, so the idea that we had a 2, 3, here's the 50, the enter was the front run on the 50. We've got an algo target up here that so far we've come shy of. Well, now given where we are in the count, I've actually pulled this over to this, thinking on the assumption that I think we have now actually a better count here. This has completed our 1 wave. So can we get a 1 wave out of that? Well, the 4 and the 5, relatively straightforward. But I had to really dig to get a 1 wave down here. So I'm actually going to take it down to the 5-minute, which I rarely go there, and I don't encourage it. But it was so tough to get a 1 wave out of that. I had to actually go down to that level. So it's there. It's there, but you've got a diagonal to get you into a 1 wave here. We have to allow for a very slight truncation in the 5th, but I can get a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 to give me a 1 wave here to complete it coming off of this low. Right? If that's not there, then it's a tough case for bulls. Tough to dig a 1 out of that. But there it is. So I can get a 1 wave. I've got a very deep 2. Yeah, there it is again, the deep 2. If we allow for that as the 2, right? We stay internal. We don't violate this low. If that's a 1, 2, well, then I come off of it again with yet another 1, 2. Now that 2 is more traditional. So if I just show it to you, so working from this is my 2 to this is my 1, we come in between the 50 and the 618. Right? And then here's the first algo target. So that, we're of course well beyond that. But if we allow for this as a 1, 2, then I can get a 1, 2, 3. I got a little ABC here. This is technical. So if I pull this, let's take this off here now. Okay, so if I work from this 2, oh, pardon me, it would be from this 2 to this 3. Well, there's my 4 here, right to the Vegas wave. Love that, right in the lips of the Vegas wave. Between the 38, 23, just fine. And then I get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to finish up here for a 5. So I've got a contender here as a 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, finishing my third up here in white. So I finished that third right here. You get the idea. There it is. Okay, so that finishes. Well, now I get a nice little ABC down to my 4. Now look how technical that is. So let's go down here. All right, so here, so if I go all the way, allowing for the completion of the third. Okay, so from my 2, I've got my completed 5 waves into my third. I've got an A, B, and I come in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down for my C. And then I go up and I finish with a 5th up here to give me a now I'm going to pull back out to 15 minutes so we can get a better look at it. Okay, so that gives me a contender now for a 1 wave here of the larger degree. So potentially off of this low, I have a completed 1 wave. After the 1, what are we looking for? A 3 wave B, and then I come down here and potentially now I have a pivot here for my wave 2. Now, could that be done? There could be one more kick here. So if we look at it and we count this with this very small degree, so it potentially now here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 could be going in. There could be one more push down here. We'd move the 2 over to allow for that, and the C would have to come over as well. Right, so how do we, so I guess I don't need this here anymore, so you know what we're long from this 50 from in here at 7,300. So it could A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, well, we'd measure that. We'd want to look for a relationship in that 4th relative to the length of the 3rd. We'd come right to the 50. All right, so let's think about that. Would that play? If this comes back down here and we finish that 5, that gives us a nice setup here for a C. So if you're long off of this 50, you're going to have to absorb a little drawdown here, which, as I look at that, that's an opportunity to add. Right, but this is not the kind of trade where you load the boat on this. Right, it's already had a decent return. I know some have already grabbed some my shorter term traders have already grabbed some profit up here. But look at this. Look, so in from 7,300, we got up to call it 7,600. So we had a little 300 move here. But this is really interesting here. How many times we've tapped up into this level up here and been unable to break through. So let just know, whenever I see something like that, what I want to do, I want to put a line on it and just see if it has any relevance going off to the left. So you see we tap that 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Looks like over here as well. So you could almost draw it like this. If I grab a rectangle and I just include all of these wicks, we've got this serious level of resistance here. Now let's carry it over. And if I get all of these wicks here, so when we go out to a larger time frame. So if we look at that's kind of interesting how this, even pulling it over here, we just have this big wall of resistance up here at this 7,600 level. So pulling back out. So if I go back out to, let's go back out to my 3 hour and just look at that, just out of curiosity. Well, that's kind of interesting. It's right in a line here. We can see this seems to consistently, here's my 1 wave. Yeah, we got through it here. Here's my 3rd wave. It's to the tick to that prior 3rd where we had this A expanded flat into the B, came down for the 4. Right, I remember that well, because that was tricky to get that. I remember it well. So that seems to be, this level is obviously significant to the market. So let me get back down here to my 15-minute. And I know I'm running long here today, but since we're only doing Bitcoin today, I wanted to really dig in as we're here on a Friday. Okay, so looking at that now, so what's left here? So the potential here is that we come down here, we finish this 5th of a C before we start climbing out in some sort of a motive wave. So if I allow for that. Okay, so this will be important here, right? Are we? Because this doesn't look like we've got an impulse. It looks like we may have one more leg down here. So opportunity 7,200 looks interesting to me. Again, my eye is immediately drawn to wherever I see confluence here. So that prior level coming into play. I've got a few other pivots here to consider. You want to kind of keep an eye on these. They have a way of coming back into play in the market. That's why I like to wick them off and extend them indefinitely. to the right. So I know that was a significant pivot at some point in the future. So it may be some point in the future. All right, so if we allow for that one wave to be in, we're simply now, because we've got a very clean ABC, we're simply now waiting for this, if this is going to roll over one more time, to come down here and complete and finish and give us our C wave. Got a nice fat algo target here from the 50, so this is all teed up to go there. Now, do we react here? Well, likely a reaction. Some sort of reaction will be there. That would set us up and finish this ABC, laying it out for a 2 before we start in what we'd be looking for, the one wave. Well, you know, at this level, it could be the one wave of the one wave, but it could also be the one wave of the third wave. But my guess is it would be, because we sit here on the 15-minute, that would be the one wave of the larger degree. So we'll see. But right now, this you know, it's a contender. Now, I'm running long today, I know. So I'm at 25 minutes here now. I'm going to quickly go over. The bearish count requires less hyper analysis, if you will. So with that established, let's go quickly take a look at the bear count, because that actually is easier to get a read on. Now, bears are operating on the assumption, let me go back to that same 3 hour, right where we started here. Bears are operating on the assumption that with that, as we were documenting that, or I was laying that out to you earlier, with that very clear ABC, we've now just put in an X wave here at this higher of the 2 pivots. And now we put in an A wave here. So we've got an A. This now, rather than an impulse, we've got an AB. So in yellow, the A, this is a B with a very shallow C wave. It's not conventional, but we don't violate any Elliott rules here. C does not have, this C here in green does not have to be any particular percentage, although this would be low probability that we'd have a C that was that short relative to the A, but wouldn't be the first time that's happened. So on that assumption, that gives us an A here in yellow. So this would be A, B, and we're going down to finish a C. Now where that finishes, you know, that's a question for conversation, right? So bears are looking at this thinking, well, so here, let me go back down. Let's go to the hour. I think we can do it on the hourly. So if we look at that, we can definitely get a clean 5 waves coming down. So bears look at that and see, oh, that's just my one wave. That's not an A wave or an ABC X ABC. That's just a one wave. Right? And it's hard to argue with that, right? It's a perfectly impulsive wave. Now, third wave is not the longest, but remember, third doesn't have to be the longest, just can't be the shortest. So it's not the best symmetry I've ever seen, but it's certainly valid. There is no way to dispute that as to whether or not that's a 5-wave structure. Then I get a nice 3-wave into my 2. Now it's a shallow 2, right? Remember I said about Bitcoin and second waves. So it's a shallow. It doesn't even make the 38. Right, that's less than 10% of wave 2s that will come shy of the 38. Right, 12% will get to the 38. We don't even get to the 38. So yet again, a difficult second wave. So if you were a bear, if I were bearish, I wouldn't be in that trade. I've been up here waiting for. So look here at the wave 1. I've been looking for the sell at the 50. Anyway, so it doesn't happen. So now we roll down. So is that a 3? Well, it's not the prettiest looking 3. Just like it's a difficult C wave in the bull count, but it's there. So let me pull this off here so we can get a look at that. So you can see I've just put this channel on it. So it takes us back to that problem of the difficult second wave. Right? So if we look here, so in the bullish count, we have it this way. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 going down for a 5 to complete that. So in that degree, so that would be 1, 2. So let me change that color so we don't get lost as to what's what. Okay, so that's in the bearish count from the 2, that's your 1, 2, 3 ABC into my 4, and I've come down here, completed this ending diagonal, completing just a 3, not the absolute low, not our pivot low per the bullish count. Well, let's think about that. If that's 1, 2, and we've had this 3, now granted this 3 is not as long as the 1, right? So that's a little bit first bit of a, just duly noted here again. Third doesn't have to be the longest, just can't be the shortest. So we got to think about that in the bearish count, if that's what's going to unfold here, that we got to be eyeballing that relative to if and when we get a pivot down here. If we're going to new lows, we got to pay attention to that, because there's a possibility that this has to be relabeled, since this cannot be, if this goes longer than the third wave, this can't be a 3. So we might have 1, 2, 1, 2. right? And that would be extremely bearish. But so just sticking with the count that's right here before us, if this is my 2 and that's my finished third, well, I'm going to take from my 2 to my third. It's right where you'd expect the fourth, right? And it's an easier case to make here for this as an ABC, right? Again, it's not the ideal C wave, but the structure is there. Just as I can dig out the fifth. So you'll recall in the bull count, this is 4 going into 5. It plays the same way as B going into C. So if that's the 4 going down, I've got a nice fat algo target here, right? So if I look in here, this is complete. So ABC into the 38. So this potentially now would be setting up to do this. So this possibly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would get us down there. That would complete, and I'm just using the algo target. We don't know that's the target, but that would complete. Now, let's just think for a second. If that's going to be if the algo target is the pivot, what does that do for us relative to the length of the third relative to the fifth? So let's squish this down a little bit. I guess I have to do it that way. Okay, so let's measure it. So if this is my 1 wave, all right, and this is my 2. Well, we can see here the third doesn't. Here's 100% of the 1 wave. Well, we gotta do the same thing for the 3 to the 4 because that's just a quick way to know whether or not you're at 100% the length. So if I take the length of my third and project it from my fourth, well, that would work because we'd have, so 5 would be shorter than the third. So this is a potential candidate down here for a good pivot. If this is going to roll over now, we're going to complete. Now that would have to go to green here. So for our buy zone, if this is going to complete as a 1, 2, 3, 4 come down here for the 5, that plays. Actually, when 618 is a common target for a fifth relative to the length of the 1 projected from the 4. Right? The problem is, well, the problem's the wrong word. The challenge here is this third. All right, it's just that's not the ideal third. That's not what you'd look for in a third, but it's there and it doesn't violate. So if we allow for the 1, 2, just as we're allowing for the 1, 2 in the bullish count, we got to allow for it to come down here and give us our third. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Right now it looks like that wants to roll over, but as you'll recall in the bearish count, we're also looking for this to roll over, in the bullish count, we're looking for this to roll over one more time to complete the ABC of the 1, 2. So this is going to resolve and we're going to get the tell relatively quickly here. Very, very short, or it could be today. Certainly over the weekend, high probability that we'll get some resolution here that will offer us a tell as to what's next. Right, so that's both sides of it here. It's very, very hard to get a call on this. Right, so the safest thing to do is simply wait and let this resolve, or look for more evidence of a tell for us to know whether or not we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 going down, or we're just going to pivot down here at a reasonable zone to finish. So if we just to go back one last time to look at it. Are we going to roll down one more time here? This puts our target here at 7. Let's call it 72.80, and then if I go back down here, 72.80 would be, where's 72? Right in there's 72.75, right in this range here. So if we come down here and then we start to move off of it, going like this, well, that's our tell that we've got a 1, 2, and we're going up for the 3. If we don't get that and we come down here and we challenge this low, or even more break the low, well, then we know we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we've got a contender here for this 5 wave to complete. Now, think about where that would put us. Right, here's the pivot low. So this entire thing could finish down here. Now, granted, I'm hypothetical down here at this algo target. We could finish here and still be an internal retracement of this entire thing. Could it still be a 2? Technically, yeah, technically it could. Let's just for fun. Before I stop this, let's put this up here. Look where the 887 is. Right here, which really, last stand for a second. I've seen it, all right, but it does happen. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how this resolves, right? It's very, very clear distinction of opinions. Bears see it going down. There's an even more bearish count that we could play if this were 1, 2, 1, 2. Well, then we're going a lot lower. But if this holds, if we can hold in here, right? So even this wave 1 high could come back into play. I get this here. If we can hold in here before and then start that push from here up towards, we're going to have to fight through all this resistance here, the 50 and the 618. But if we can start heading up to challenge some of that, then I think it gives us more confidence here that the bullish count is valid. We've got a good pivot low here. And now we're off to the races. But no way to call it. You just, so when in, so final thought is, if you're in doubt, as many are here, no reason to force a trade. Wait for the market to reveal itself. All right, guys, I went long today. I didn't mean to go that long, but this right here, I was starting this going, what am I going to say about Bitcoin? It hasn't changed much since we did it on Tuesday, but here it is. So enough to chew on there. I think this will be really interesting here as to how we resolve out of this. I think there will be major tells that will affect how aggressively you want to position yourself based on how this resolves. All right, guys, want to learn more or interested in how to apply this methodology, give us a visit over at TradeDevils.com. We can teach this to you. All right, guys, that'll be it for today and for this week. All right, back to you next week. Have a good one.